After my fiancé cut off his family, I showed up pregnant, claiming the baby was his. Because I deserved his support, he demanded a DNA test, exposed the truth, and burned every bridge I thought I still controlled. Marcus and I were together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. We didn't have one of those dramatic, toxic relationships people like to imagine when things fall apart. We functioned, we paid bills, we planned a future, but emotionally, it always felt uneven. Marcus was steady, reliable, and intensely self-contained. I was the one who talked things through, pushed for connection, made sure we were aligned. Sometimes that meant I felt like I was carrying more of the emotional weight, but I told myself that was just how partnerships worked. 2 years ago, Marcus cut off his entire family, completely. Parents, siblings, everyone. He said they were controlling, judgmental, and emotionally manipulative. I believed him, I supported him, I stood next to him when people told him he'd regret it. When holidays came and went without phone calls, when birthdays passed in silence, when he questioned himself late at night, I was there. He leaned on me heavily during that period. He told me I was his family now, his safe place. I took that seriously. That context matters, because it's not like I showed up out of nowhere with some random demand. I was his partner, his fiancé, the person he chose after cutting everyone else out. The cracks started before the breakup, even if I didn't want to admit it at the time. We argued more about timelines, marriage dates, buying a house, kids, finances too. Not because we were broke, but because Marcus wanted everything perfect before moving forward, and I felt like perfection was just another way to delay committing fully. He also started pulling back emotionally. Less talking, more space. I felt him preparing to leave before he ever said it. When he ended the engagement, it wasn't dramatic. No yelling, no accusations. He sat me down and said the relationship wasn't healthy anymore, that he needed to be on his own, that he felt stuck. I was blindsided not by the breakup itself, but by how resolved he was. There was no opening to fix things, no pause. It was done. What he didn't know, what I hadn't planned to tell him yet, was that I had just found out I was pregnant. The timing is messy, and I won't pretend otherwise. Around the time Marcus started pulling away, I had a brief, casual thing with someone else. Derek. It wasn't serious. It wasn't emotional. And when I found out I was pregnant, Derek's reaction was exactly what you'd expect from someone who never wanted responsibility in the first place. Denial, distance, excuses. He made it clear he wasn't going to step up in any meaningful way. So there I was, newly single, pregnant, my fiancé gone. The man who had promised a future, suddenly absent, and the biological father uninterested. I was terrified. I was angry. And yes, I was calculating. Because fear doesn't leave you much room for moral purity. Marcus was the man I had built a life with, the one who talked about kids someday, the one who cut off his family and leaned on me instead. In my mind, that mattered more than biology in that moment. We were engaged. We were intimate during the window when conception could plausibly have happened. The timeline wasn't clean, but it wasn't impossible either. I told myself this wasn't manipulation. It was survival. It was fairness. If anyone deserved to be there, it was Marcus. He had chosen me when he had no one else. Why wouldn't he show up now? So I went to his apartment unannounced. I told him I was pregnant. I told him it was his. I didn't scream. I didn't cry hysterically. I laid it out calmly, emphasizing the overlap in timing, the seriousness of the situation, the fact that we had been planning a life together. I talked about responsibility, about support, about how scared I was. I expected shock, maybe anger, maybe confusion. What I didn't expect was how quickly he shut the door emotionally. He asked questions, direct ones, dates, details, and then, without raising his voice, without accusing me outright, he said he wanted a DNA test. I was offended, genuinely, not because I didn't understand the logic, but because of what it represented. After everything, after cutting off his family, after leaning on me as his sole support system, his first instinct was to doubt me, to treat me like I was trying to trap him instead of someone in crisis. I told him the test would add stress, that it showed a lack of trust. I reminded him of how much I had supported him when he had no one. I said that refusing to be there now made him no better than the family he walked away from. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't threatening. I was pushing back against what felt like abandonment. He didn't budge. He said he would support the child fully if it was his, but he needed certainty first. I stalled. I hesitated. I tried to buy time, but eventually there was nowhere left to hide. We did the test. It wasn't his. I admitted the truth, partially. I told him I had been scared, that I didn't know what to do, that I believed he would have wanted to be there regardless. I didn't frame it as a lie so much as a desperate attempt to hold on to the one stable thing I thought I had left. That's when everything detonated. Marcus didn't just walk away, he went scorched earth. He contacted his estranged family, shared messages, shared timelines, shared proof, publicly clarified that the baby wasn't his. He told people exactly why he had cut me off. Then he cut me off completely, blocked everywhere. No conversation, no closure, no acknowledgement beyond making sure everyone knew the truth. Friends started distancing themselves. People who had once been neutral suddenly looked at me differently. Rumors spread faster than explanations ever do. I lost more than just a relationship. I lost my support system. Even co-workers started acting strangely once word got around. And what hurts the most is that Marcus framed this as some kind of moral stand, when from my perspective, it was punishment. I didn't steal from him. I didn't cheat on him while we were engaged. I didn't ask for money or legal commitments. I asked for support when I was terrified. Yes, I made a mistake, but does that really justify erasing someone from your life completely, turning everyone against them, burning every bridge instead of having a difficult conversation? I keep coming back to this question, and I honestly don't know the answer anymore. If someone claims they love you, don't they owe you support when you're scared, even if the situation isn't perfect? Edit. I didn't expect this level of hostility, honestly. I knew people might disagree with me, but a lot of you are acting like I committed some kind of felony instead of making a decision while scared and overwhelmed. So, I need to clarify a few things because a lot of assumptions are being made that simply aren't accurate. First of all, no, I did not intend to lie to Marcus forever. I don't know where people got that idea. This was never some long-term con where I planned to trap him for 18 years. I was in shock, freshly broken up, pregnant, and panicking. I told myself I needed time to figure things out before dropping every possible bomb at once. Anyone who has ever been pregnant or scared or abandoned should understand that people don't always act perfectly when they're trying to survive emotionally. Second, I did not ask Marcus for money. I didn't demand child support. I didn't show up with legal paperwork, and I didn't try to move back in. What I asked for was emotional support and acknowledgement. People keep acting like I was trying to drain his bank account or force him into fatherhood immediately. That's not what happened. I told him I was pregnant, that the timing overlapped, and that I needed him to be there while we figured things out. That's it. Third, the DNA test. Yes, logically, I understand why someone would want one. What hurt was how fast he went there. No conversation, no pause, no let's talk this through, just immediate suspicion. After 4 years together, after an engagement, after him cutting off his entire family and leaning on me as his only support system, that didn't feel like reason. It felt like rejection, like I had gone from being his partner to being treated like a stranger trying to scam him. Update 1. I tried to step back and let things cool off. I told myself the internet always overreacts and that once emotions settled, people would move on. That didn't happen. Instead, everything that felt contained suddenly wasn't. The first sign was Marcus's family. I didn't even know he was back in contact with them until a mutual friend messaged me asking what the hell I'd done. Apparently, Marcus didn't just reach out quietly. He sent a detailed message to his parents and siblings explaining why he'd cut them off originally, what had happened between us, and why he was done for good with me as well. He included screenshots, full conversations, dates, the pregnancy announcement, his request for the DNA test, my responses, everything. I know because those screenshots started circulating. At first it was subtle, vague posts on social media about lies and manipulation without names. Then someone tagged me. Then someone else sent me a screenshot asking if it was true. By the end of the week, people who had never met me were discussing my private messages like they were public record. Marcus's mother commented on one post saying she finally understood why he'd gone no contact and that she supported him, protecting his future. One of his sisters wrote that they'd warned him about people like this. I wasn't just exposed, I was turned into a cautionary tale. What hurts is that Marcus knew exactly how damaging this would be. He knows how his family operates. He knows how they talk. He didn't just tell them the truth, he handed them a weapon. At the same time, my own life started unraveling in quieter but more immediate ways. Word reached my workplace. I don't work in some tiny town, but I work in a field where people talk. And apparently one of Marcus's cousins knew someone in my department. HR called me in, not to discipline me, but to ask if I was going through something and whether I needed time off. That sounds supportive, but the undertone was clear. They'd heard something, and it wasn't flattering. Co-workers started treating me differently. Conversations stopped when I walked into the break room. One friend at work asked outright if I'd lied to my fiancé about a baby. I tried to explain, but the narrative was already written, and no one was interested in nuance. Meanwhile, Derek, the actual biological father, completely vanished. When I told him about the fallout, he said this was too much drama and that he never asked to be involved anyway. He blocked my number the same day Marcus did. No conversation, no responsibility, no support, just gone. That's when the panic really set in. I had been staying in the apartment Marcus and I shared, assuming I'd have time to figure out next steps. That assumption was wrong. Marcus contacted the landlord and had his name removed immediately. I was given notice that I couldn't afford the place on my own and needed to either find a co-signer or vacate. Friends who had initially said, "Call me if you need anything," stopped responding once the screenshots started circulating. One friend sat me down and said bluntly that while she cared about me, she couldn't defend what I did and didn't want to be pulled into the mess. Another said she felt betrayed because she'd vouched for me to Marcus after the breakup. It felt like every door I thought I had cracked open slammed shut at once. I tried once to reach out to Marcus again, not to argue, not to demand anything. I sent a short message acknowledging that the situation had blown up and asking if we could at least talk privately to stop the public fallout. It didn't go through. I'd been blocked everywhere, including email. That's when it really hit me that I wasn't part of his life anymore in any form. Not as a partner, not as someone he felt responsible for, not even as someone he wanted to argue with. What surprised me most was how quickly people decided there was no gray area. Friends confronted me directly. One said, "You don't get to decide what support looks like for someone else." Another said, "You don't get to lie and then complain about consequences." They weren't cruel, but they were firm. And none of them were interested in hearing about my fear, my panic, or how alone I felt. Even now, I still think Marcus could have handled this differently. I don't believe exposure was necessary. I don't believe involving his family was unavoidable. I don't believe public humiliation was the only way forward. But I'm starting to understand that once trust breaks, people stop caring about proportionality. The worst part is realizing I don't have any leverage left. I can't control the story. I can't appeal to shared history. I can't ask for grace. Everything I thought I could manage quietly is now permanently out of my hands. I keep replaying the moment I showed up at his door, convinced that emotional proximity meant obligation, convinced that because we'd shared a life, he couldn't just walk away. I genuinely believed that even if things were messy, I still had some claim to his support. I was wrong. For the first time, I'm starting to see that what I called buying time looked exactly like deception from the outside. That what I framed as desperation looked calculated once screenshots replaced context, and that once the truth came out, there was no version of events where I got to be both the victim and the one in control. I thought I controlled the truth. I didn't realize I was the only one lying. Final update. I waited longer than I planned before writing this. Part of that was exhaustion. Part of it was knowing that whatever clarity I'd gained wasn't going to change anyone's mind anymore. The story is finished whether I narrate it or not. But I said I'd update, and this is where things actually landed. Not the dramatic version people want, not a redemption arc, just the reality I'm living in now. Marcus is still no contact. Completely. No loopholes, no indirect messages, no emergencies only. After update 1, I tried one last time to send a message through a mutual acquaintance. Not to ask for support, not to rehash the relationship, but to ask for boundaries. I wanted the screenshots to stop circulating. I wanted the public commentary to die down. I wanted my name out of his family's mouths. The response I got back wasn't from Marcus directly. It was relayed through his friend, word for word, and it was short. He doesn't want updates. He doesn't want explanations. He's done. That was it. No anger, no lecture, no final argument to win, just done. And that, strangely, hurt more than everything else combined. In the weeks that followed, his family didn't exactly reconcile with him publicly, but they circled the wagons around him. They stopped posting about me, but they didn't retract anything either. The narrative stayed where it landed. I lied, I manipulated, I tried to trap him, and he escaped. End of story. I learned later that Marcus had re-established limited contact with one of his siblings. Not a full reconciliation, not Sunday dinners and holidays, but enough to have family again. Enough that he wasn't alone anymore. And that mattered more than I want to admit, because part of what I counted on, whether I want to own this or not, was the idea that I was still his last connection, his last obligation, his emotional anchor. That illusion is gone. Legally, things also locked into place. After the DNA results and the fallout, Marcus had a lawyer send a cease and desist notice. It wasn't dramatic, but it was thorough. No contact, no third-party communication, no attempts to involve him in the pregnancy or after, no use of his name in connection with the child, no implication, public or private, that he was involved in any way. Seeing it in legal language made it real in a way screenshots didn't. It wasn't personal anymore. It was procedural, clean, final. I didn't fight it, not because I suddenly became agreeable, but because there was nothing left to push against. I'd already lost the leverage I thought I had. Trying to force contact at that point wouldn't have made me righteous. It would have made me reckless. Derek, as expected, remained absent. I tried once more to reach him, not to beg, not to argue, but to tell him what was happening and ask if he intended to be involved at all. He replied with a single sentence, "I can't do this." That was the last I heard from him. Financially, I'm stable now, but only just. I found a smaller place. I took on extra hours at work. The whispers faded enough that I could function again, though I know how people see me hasn't fully recovered. Some bridges don't burn, they just quietly rot and collapse when you try to cross them. The pregnancy progressed. The baby is healthy. That part, at least, is uncomplicated. What is complicated is sitting with the truth of what I did without the comfort of justification. I still don't believe I'm a monster. I don't believe I set out to destroy someone's life. I don't believe fear makes you evil by default. But I can finally admit, without spinning it, that I acted from entitlement more than desperation. I didn't just want support. I wanted his support. Specifically, because I believed our history entitled me to it. Because I believed emotional labor could be cashed in like a debt. Because I believed that being the person who stood by him when he cut off his family meant I'd earned permanent access to him. And when he said no, I didn't accept it. I tried to reroute reality to make no impossible. That's the part I can't dodge anymore. I also see now why the DNA test wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. I experienced it as rejection because I was still operating under the assumption that trust was automatic. It wasn't. I broke that first. Marcus didn't burn bridges because he wanted revenge. He burned them because I showed him I couldn't be trusted with access. He chose certainty over chaos, and as much as it hurts to say, that choice makes sense. I don't get sympathy for that realization, and I'm not asking for it. I'm raising this child on my own. That's not a moral badge or a tragedy, it's just fact. I've stopped framing Marcus as someone who abandoned me, because the truth is more uncomfortable. He opted out after I crossed a line I can't uncross. There's no co-parenting drama, no surprise reconciliations, no secret messages. He's not lurking, he's not watching, he's not waiting. He's moved on, and I'm not part of that future. And I've accepted that acceptance doesn't mean approval. I still think people online flatten me into a caricature. I still think context matters. I still think panic does strange things to judgment. But I also understand now that explaining yourself isn't the same as being right, and that sometimes exposure feels cruel only because secrecy was your last defense. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Emotional proximity does not create ownership. Love doesn't entitle you to someone's life once they've walked away. And support, real support, can't be extracted through guilt or rewritten timelines. I thought I could control the story if I controlled the information. What I didn't understand is that the moment you lie, you give up the right to decide how the truth lands. This is where it ends. No reconciliation, no forgiveness tour, no last twist, just consequences. And a life I now have to build without pretending anyone owes me a role in theirs.